The gentle hum of the coffee maker filled the morning quiet as I stood by my kitchen window, watching the neighborhood slowly come to life. At 62, I had learned to appreciate these peaceful moments before the day's responsibilities demanded my attention. The sunlight caught the framed photo on my windowsill, Sarah and me on our 30th wedding anniversary. Her radiant smile, a bittersweet reminder of all we had built together during our decades of marriage. The stack of medical bills on my kitchen table served as a stark contrast to that happy memory. Even now, 8 months after Sarah's passing, the financial weight of her final battle with cancer continued to challenge everything I had worked to secure. The numbers told a story of love and dedication, of choosing hope over financial prudence, of believing that no cost was too great when it came to giving my beloved wife every possible chance. I had spent 40 years building a solid life for our family, starting as a junior engineer at Morrison Dynamics. I had worked my way up through determination and integrity, eventually leading the structural design team for commercial buildings throughout the Midwest. Sarah had been my constant support, managing our home with the same careful attention I brought to my blueprints. Together, we had created something meaningful, something lasting. Our daughter Rebecca had been the center of our world. From her first steps in her modest starter home to her graduation from Northwestern University with a degree in marketing, we had invested not just money, but our hearts, our time, and our dreams into her future. The photos scattered across my mantle chronicled those precious years. Birthday parties where Sarah spent weeks planning every detail, family vacations where we chose experiences over material possessions, graduations where our pride radiated from every carefully preserved image. Now, at 29, Rebecca lived in a downtown Chicago apartment that cost more per month than Sarah and I had paid for our first mortgage. Her lifestyle reflected choices that often puzzled me: designer clothing and expensive restaurants, weekend trips to destinations I had only dreamed of visiting during my years of careful budgeting and family responsibility. Yet she remained my daughter, the little girl who used to fall asleep in my lap while I read her stories about princesses and dragons. The financial strain of Sarah's illness had been overwhelming. Experimental treatments not covered by insurance, private care facilities that provided dignity during her final months, medications that offered hope even when traditional medicine had exhausted its options. I had never hesitated to spend whatever was necessary, liquidating retirement accounts and taking loans against our home's equity. Love, I had learned, makes financial decisions with the heart rather than the head. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. Now, let us return to this profound tale of family, sacrifice, and the difficult lessons that sometimes emerge from our deepest disappointments. The doorbell's sharp ring interrupted my morning reflection. Through the frosted glass, I could see Rebecca's familiar silhouette, but something seemed different about her posture, a tension that suggested this visit carried more weight than our usual weekly check-ins. I opened the door to find my daughter looking uncharacteristically vulnerable, her usual confident demeanor replaced by something that resembled the uncertainty I remembered from her teenage years. "Dad, we need to talk." Her voice carried an urgency that immediately concerned me. Rebecca had always been articulate, even as a child, but today her words seemed carefully chosen, as if she had rehearsed this conversation during her drive from the city. I invited her into the living room, where Sarah's presence still lingered in every carefully chosen piece of furniture, every family photo, every small detail that spoke of a life shared and deeply loved. Rebecca settled onto the sofa, where she had spent countless Sunday afternoons as a child, but her adult presence there seemed somehow out of place, as if the years had created a distance that even familiar surroundings couldn't bridge. "I'm in trouble, Dad." The admission came quietly, almost whispered, as if speaking the words aloud made them more real than she was prepared to face. "Financial trouble. Serious financial trouble." I sat in my worn leather chair, the same spot where I had helped her with homework, where we had discussed her college plans, where Sarah and I had made countless decisions about our family's future. The morning light streaming through our lace curtains illuminated the worry lines around Rebecca's eyes, reminders that my little girl had become a woman facing challenges I had hoped to protect her from. "Tell me what's happening," I said gently, drawing on decades of experience in both engineering and fatherhood, knowing that understanding the full scope of a problem was essential before attempting any solution. Rebecca's story unfolded like a case study in financial mismanagement. Credit card debt that had spiraled beyond her ability to manage, a lifestyle that consistently exceeded her income, emergency expenses that had pushed her past the breaking point. She spoke of her marketing position at a prestigious firm, the pressure to maintain appearances among colleagues who seemed to effortlessly afford luxuries that stretch her budget to its limits. "I need $15,000, Dad." The number hung between us like a weight. "Without this money, I'll lose my apartment, my car will be repossessed, and my credit will be destroyed. Everything I've worked for will disappear." I looked at my daughter, seeing both the accomplished woman she had become and the child who had once believed her father could solve any problem with love and determination. The irony was not lost on me that here, surrounded by the evidence of Sarah's medical expenses, Rebecca was asking for help that would require sacrificing what little financial stability I had managed to preserve. "Rebecca, you understand my situation right now." I gestured toward the stack of bills that had become a permanent fixture on my kitchen table. "The medical expenses from your mother's care, the adjustments to my retirement plans, the reality of living on a fixed income while managing unexpected costs." Her expression shifted, disappointment mixing with something that resembled resentment. "You always have reasons, Dad. Always some excuse for why you can't help your own daughter when she needs you most." The accusation stung more than I wanted to admit. How could I explain that saying no was perhaps the most difficult thing I had ever done as a father? That every instinct screamed at me to protect her, to write the check and solve her problems as I had done throughout her childhood? That the weight of financial responsibility now forced me to consider consequences I had never imagined facing? "This isn't about reasons or excuses," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "It's about reality, about understanding that resources have limits, even when love doesn't." Rebecca stood abruptly, pacing our small living room with the restless energy of someone accustomed to having problems solved quickly and efficiently. "Reality? The reality is that you're my father. The reality is that family is supposed to support each other. The reality is that I'm drowning while you count pennies and make excuses." I watched my daughter struggle with emotions that seemed to surprise her with their intensity. In her frustration, I glimpsed the child who had once thrown tantrums when denied immediate gratification, but I also saw the woman who had never been forced to face the natural consequences of choices that exceeded her means. "Rebecca, please sit down. Let's approach this thoughtfully." I patted the sofa cushion beside me, hoping to bridge the emotional distance that seemed to grow wider with each exchange. "Perhaps we can explore alternatives, develop a plan that addresses your situation without creating an impossible burden for either of us." "There are no alternatives." She grabbed her purse with sharp, decisive movements. "You either care about what happens to me or you don't. Apparently, the answer is clear." The words struck like physical blows, each syllable carrying the weight of judgment and disappointment. Standing in my living room, watching my daughter prepare to leave in anger, I felt the familiar burden of being the parent who must say no, even when every fiber of my being wanted to protect her from the harsh realities of adult consequences. "This isn't fair, and you know it," I said quietly, my voice carrying decades of love even as it delivered difficult truth. "But fairness isn't always possible when circumstances force impossible choices." Rebecca paused at the threshold, her silhouette framed against the morning light. For a moment, I hoped she might turn back, might give us both an opportunity to find common ground despite our different perspectives. Instead, She walked into the sunshine without another word, leaving me alone with the medical bills and the sudden understanding that love sometimes requires accepting painful misunderstandings when principle matters more than peace. Through the window, I watched her car disappear down our tree-lined street, carrying with it the comfortable illusion that family relationships could survive any strain as long as love remained constant. The house felt larger and quieter than usual, filled with echoes of words that couldn't be taken back and silences that spoke louder than arguments. 3 days passed in careful routine, each morning beginning with coffee and contemplation, each evening ending with the kind of solitude that forces honest self-reflection. I found myself reviewing not just Rebecca's request, but the patterns that had brought us to this crossroads. When had my generous support crossed the line into enabling behavior that prevented her from developing self-reliance? When had my desire to protect her from hardship begun undermining her ability to develop the resilience that authentic adulthood requires? The business conference in Denver couldn't have come at a better time. Morrison Dynamics was considering significant changes to our structural engineering department, and my presentation on cost-effective design innovations represented months of careful research and development. At my age, professional security required constant proof of relevance and value, a reality that younger colleagues didn't yet understand but would eventually face themselves. My neighbor, Tom Bradley, waved from his driveway as the taxi arrived to take me to the airport. Tom and Margaret had been wonderful friends during Sarah's illness, offering practical help and emotional support when grief threatened to overwhelm my ability to function. Their presence in the neighborhood provided comfort and continuity during a period when everything familiar seemed to be shifting. Business trip, Tom called, his genuine interest reflecting the kind of neighborly concern that had become increasingly rare in our mobile society. Conference in Denver. Back Thursday evening, I secured my suitcase in the taxi's trunk, grateful for neighbors who noticed comings and goings, who maintained the informal network of awareness that helped communities function safely. The flight to Denver provided time for reflection and preparation. Reviewing my presentation materials, I felt the satisfaction of work done thoroughly and professionally. The innovations I had developed represented practical solutions to real problems, approaches that balance cost considerations with structural integrity and safety. Engineering had taught me that the best solutions were often elegant in their simplicity, addressing complex challenges through careful analysis rather than expensive complications. My hotel room overlooked the Rocky Mountains, their majestic presence a reminder of permanence and perspective. From this distance, my problems with Rebecca seemed smaller, more manageable. Perhaps time and space would allow both of us to approach our disagreement with greater wisdom and understanding. Perhaps the conference would provide the professional validation I needed to feel more secure about my financial choices. The 3 days in Denver passed successfully. My presentation was well received, generating interest from colleagues and positive feedback for senior management. The networking sessions provided valuable connections and insights into industry trends that would influence our work for years to come. By Thursday afternoon, I felt professionally energized and personally optimistic about returning home to address family challenges with renewed perspective. The taxi ride from O'Hare Airport took longer than usual due to evening traffic, giving me time to appreciate the familiar sights of my neighborhood. The mature oak trees that lined our streets, the well-maintained homes that reflected decades of careful stewardship, the sense of stability and continuity that had made this community our home for over 20 years. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it, peaceful and orderly in the gathering dusk. But something was wrong with my driveway. The taxi's headlights illuminated my Honda Accord, and even from a distance, I could see that something fundamental had changed. The familiar silhouette of my reliable sedan appeared fractured, broken in ways that made no immediate sense. As we drew closer, the extent of destruction became horrifyingly clear. "Dear God," the taxi driver muttered, his voice reflecting shock and concern. "Sir, what happened to your car?" I stepped out slowly, my legs unsteady from the combination of travel fatigue and immediate recognition that this was no random act of vandalism. Every window had been systematically shattered, spider webs of safety glass catching the evening light like broken promises. The hood bore multiple dents, each one clearly delivered with deliberate force and methodical precision. Deep scratches scarred every panel, carved with obvious intent to cause maximum damage while avoiding anything that might be easily repaired. Two tires had been slashed completely, rubber hanging in defeated strips, while the third showed a clean puncture that allowed air to escape with a barely audible hiss. Both mirrors dangled from their wires like broken limbs, and the interior, visible through shattered windows, remained mysteriously untouched. "Should I call the police?" the driver asked, his professional concern evident as he helped me retrieve my suitcase from his trunk. "Not yet," I replied, my analytical mind taking control despite the emotional shock. "Let me assess the situation first." I walked slowly around my destroyed vehicle, documenting every detail with my phone's camera. The timestamps read 9:15, 9:17, 9:20 p.m., creating a record that might prove essential for whatever would follow. The precision of the destruction impressed me even as it devastated me. This wasn't teenage mischief or random crime. Someone had invested significant time and effort into ensuring maximum damage while carefully avoiding the house itself. The selective nature of the vandalism struck me as particularly significant. Mr. Bradley's truck sat untouched in his driveway. The Johnson family's SUV appeared perfectly normal. Every other vehicle on our quiet street remained exactly as it had been when I left for Denver. This destruction was personal, deliberate, and specifically targeted. Standing in my driveway at nearly 10 o'clock at night, surrounded by the scattered remnants of my reliable transportation, I felt something fundamental shift in my understanding of safety and trust. The comfortable assumption that bad things happen to other people had just shattered as completely as my windshield. Someone had known I would be away. Someone had used that knowledge to violate my property with careful precision. The house felt different as I dragged my suitcase inside, as if the external violation had somehow penetrated even spaces that remained physically untouched. I turned on every light, checked every lock, and drew every curtain before settling at my kitchen table with a legal pad and the stack of medical bills that suddenly seemed far less important than this new crisis. Insurance would cover most of the damage, assuming I could prove this wasn't somehow my fault. But coverage wasn't really the point anymore. Someone had sent me a message written in broken glass and slashed rubber, and I needed to understand not just who had done this, but why they felt justified in such calculated destruction. I began making lists with the methodical approach that had served me well throughout my engineering career. Neighbors to interview, questions to ask, timeline to establish. Surely someone had seen something, heard something. Vandalism this extensive couldn't happen in complete silence. The methodical destruction would have taken time, created noise, required tools and planning. As I organized my approach like a technical investigation, one possibility kept intruding on my logical analysis. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental. Someone had known exactly when I would be gone, had planned this destruction with full knowledge of my travel schedule. The thought I tried to avoid acknowledging grew stronger with each moment of reflection. I added one more name to my list of people to question, hoping desperately that I would never need to pursue that particular line of investigation. Friday morning found me moving through my neighborhood with systematic determination, armed with printed photographs and a composition notebook for recording information. The destroyed Honda remained in my driveway like evidence in a criminal investigation, serving as both motivation and reminder of why these conversations mattered. My first stop was the Bradley house, where Tom answered the door with immediate concern upon seeing the photographs. We were visiting Margaret's sister in Wisconsin all week, he explained, studying each image with genuine sympathy. Got back late last night and noticed your car looked wrong, but it was too dark to see clearly. This is terrible, Frank. Really sorry this happened in our neighborhood. Margaret appeared beside him, shaking her head in dismay. Who would do such a thing? This looks so deliberate, so personal. Their shock seemed authentic, their concern genuine, but they offered nothing useful beyond confirming that they had been away during the time period when the destruction occurred. I noted the information carefully and moved to the next house. Mrs. Chun was tending her garden when I approached, her practical demeanor shifting to alarm as she examined the photographs. I heard sounds Wednesday night, maybe 11:30 or midnight, she said thoughtfully, removing her gardening gloves to study the images more carefully. Thought it might be raccoons in someone's garbage, but now. What kind of sound exactly? I asked, writing carefully in my notebook. Rhythmic like someone working. Should have investigated, I suppose, but you know how sounds carry at night. Could have been anything. The timing aligned perfectly with my suspicions. Someone had worked methodically through the late evening hours, destroying my property while I slept peacefully in a Denver hotel room, unaware that my life was being systematically violated by someone who knew exactly when I would be defenseless. Each subsequent conversation followed similar patterns. Concerned neighbors, expressions of sympathy, occasional reports of sounds dismissed as normal nighttime activity. Nobody had seen unfamiliar vehicles. Nobody had noticed anyone watching the neighborhood. The few who had heard anything had attributed the sounds to animals or distant construction. Walking back to my house after 3 hours of investigation, I realized that whoever had destroyed my car possessed not just my address, but detailed knowledge of my habits, my travel schedule, and my relationship with neighbors who barely knew my name well enough to provide useful information. This level of intimate knowledge pointed towards someone with regular access to my personal information, someone who understood my routines well enough to plan this violation with confidence and precision. The Allstate insurance representative was professionally sympathetic when I called to report the claim. My organized documentation impressed her with its thoroughness. Photographs taken from multiple angles, detailed notes about the extent of damage, estimated timeline based on neighbor interviews. The process moved efficiently through electronic forms and digital submissions, creating case number 2024-156789 and scheduling an adjuster visit for Monday afternoon. James Patterson arrived precisely on time in a white company van equipped with assessment tools and electronic reporting equipment. A man in his 40s with the confidence of someone who had evaluated thousands of damaged vehicles. He approached my destroyed Honda with professional detachment that gradually gave way to genuine surprise. This is one of the most systematic acts of vandalism I've encountered, he said, documenting every scratch, dent, and broken component with digital precision. Someone invested considerable time and effort into causing maximum damage while avoiding anything that might suggest random crime. How much will repairs cost? I asked, though I suspected the answer would exceed the vehicle's book value. James crouched beside the slashed tires, examining the clean cuts that spoke of deliberate methodology rather than impulsive rage. Given your car's age and condition, we're looking at total loss. Replacement value should be around $8,500, minus your $500 deductible. The assessment took 45 minutes, James's thoroughness reflecting the kind of professional competence that builds confidence in institutional systems. His documentation would become part of a permanent record, evidence that could prove valuable if this situation escalated beyond simple property damage. Any idea who might have done this? He asked as we completed the electronic paperwork. Vandalism, this methodical, usually isn't random. Someone with a serious grievance, maybe a neighbor dispute or family conflict. The question hung between us like an unspoken accusation. Did I have enemies? Had I wronged someone badly enough to deserve this level of retaliation? The possibilities churned in my mind, but only one explanation fit the specific circumstances of timing, knowledge, and personal targeting. Nothing comes to mind. I replied honestly, unwilling to voice suspicions that remained unproven despite their logical probability. James drove away, leaving me with paperwork that promised financial resolution and a check that would arrive within 7 business days. Standing in my driveway, looking at documentation showing $8,000 in pending compensation, I felt something approaching optimism for the first time since discovering the damage. Insurance would handle the financial impact, and soon I would have enough money to replace my reliable transportation. Walking toward my house, I wondered what I would do when that check finally arrived, and whether financial compensation could address the deeper violation of trust that this destruction represented. Tuesday afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Through my living room window, I recognized Rebecca's confident walk, the purposeful stride that suggested she had come with specific intentions rather than casual reconciliation. No desperate urgency this time, no visible signs of the emotional distress that had characterized our last encounter. This Rebecca appeared composed, determined, almost triumphant in her obvious satisfaction about something. "Dad, we need to talk." She entered without the dramatic tension from our previous meeting, her expensive purse slung casually over one shoulder. Designer clothes suggesting money spent somewhere other than on the financial emergencies she had described weeks earlier. I gestured toward the living room, where family photos maintained their silent vigil from the mantel, and my insurance paperwork lay visible on the coffee table like evidence of life's unexpected complications. Rebecca settled onto the sofa with calculated ease while I returned to my familiar armchair, uncertain about the purpose of this visit, but grateful for any opportunity to repair our strained relationship. "I know about the insurance claim," she began without preamble, her directness puzzling given our recent tension. "For your car." Word travels fast in certain circles. I attempted lightness despite my confusion about her confident demeanor. Bad news does seem to spread quickly in small communities. Rebecca's smile held no warmth, carrying instead a cold satisfaction that made me increasingly uncomfortable. "It was me, Dad. I destroyed your car." The words struck like physical blows, my coffee mug freezing halfway to my lips as I stared at my daughter in complete shock. The child I had raised, educated, supported through every crisis now sat in my living room, casually confessing to deliberate destruction of my property with the same tone she might use to discuss weekend plans. "Rebecca, what are you saying?" The question emerged as barely more than a whisper, my mind struggling to process this impossible revelation. "You wouldn't give me the money I needed, so I found another way to get it." Her matter-of-fact tone made the confession even more devastating. Insurance companies exist for exactly this purpose. You get your car replaced, I get the cash I originally requested. Problem solved efficiently. My phone rested within easy reach on the side table, and some instinct prompted me to activate the recording function, legal in Illinois with single-party consent. Something told me I would need evidence of this conversation, documentation of words I could barely believe I was hearing. "You deliberately destroyed my property while I was traveling for business?" I kept my voice steady despite the emotional earthquake shaking my understanding of everything I had believed about my daughter. Wednesday night, around 11:30. Took longer than expected. Those windshields are surprisingly durable. She examined her manicured nails with disturbing nonchalance. But I accomplished what needed to be done. "This is criminal behavior, Rebecca. Do you understand the gravity of what you've done?" Her laugh carried no humor, only dismissive arrogance. "Really, Dad? Drama much? You have excellent insurance coverage. No one was actually harmed. Your precious Honda was getting old anyway. Now you'll get something newer with the settlement money." Sitting across from the child I had raised with Sarah's gentle guidance and my own careful attention to moral development, I felt something fundamental break inside my understanding of family, love, and trust. This wasn't the desperate daughter from our kitchen confrontation weeks ago. This was a stranger wearing Rebecca's face, displaying calculated coldness that chilled me more than her earlier emotional manipulation. I needed that money more than you needed that old car, she continued with predatory focus. Besides, you're being overly dramatic. Just give me the check when it arrives, and we'll call this situation resolved. Call it resolved? My voice barely controlled the rage building inside. You committed vandalism, destroyed thousands of dollars worth of property, violated my trust, and planned this betrayal while I was working to maintain my career and financial stability. Property you'll replace with insurance money that you're going to share with your daughter who faces serious financial difficulties while you hoard resources like some miser. She leaned forward with calculating intensity. I found a solution that benefits both of us. The casual entitlement in her voice, the complete absence of remorse, the calculating way she had planned and executed this violation of everything decent between family members crystallized into perfect, horrible clarity. My own daughter had deliberately betrayed me, then arrived to demand payment for her crime, as if destruction of trust was simply another business transaction. This isn't just about money, Rebecca. This is about character, about respect, about the basic human decency that holds families and communities together. Character? Her voice rose with familiar indignation. What about your character when you refused to help your own child in a financial crisis? What about family loyalty when you chose money over your daughter's welfare? The distortion of reality in her words struck me like psychological warfare. She had transformed her criminal behavior into victim status, her calculated destruction into justified response, her demand for money into righteous entitlement. The manipulation was so complete, so audacious, that I almost questioned my own moral compass. Rebecca stood abruptly, apparently finished with explanations and ready to proceed with collection of what she clearly considered rightfully hers. I'll call you next week to arrange pickup. Cash will be most convenient, but a check made out to me would work as well. She moved toward the door with the same confident stride that had brought her here, leaving me stunned in my chair with family photos bearing silent witness to the destruction of everything I believed about parental love, family loyalty, and the fundamental goodness I had tried to instill in my child through decades of patient guidance and sacrifice. The door closed with finality. Her engine started, tires crunched on gravel, and silence returned to my violated home. I remained motionless, phone still recording, staring at family pictures that now felt like monuments to a dead past, evidence of naive beliefs about unconditional love and family bonds that could survive any betrayal. That evening found me in my study with the door closed against a world that no longer felt safe or predictable. Rebecca's recorded confession played through my phone speaker, each word a fresh reminder of how completely I had failed to understand the person my daughter had become. Her voice carried the same casual confidence that had shocked me hours earlier, each sentence building evidence of character corruption that I had somehow failed to recognize or address. Family photo albums lay scattered across my desk like exhibits in a courtroom trial. Northwestern University graduation, Rebecca in cap and gown with Sarah, and me beaming with parental pride. First apartment celebration, Rebecca laughing as I carried boxes up 3 flights of stairs in Chicago's summer heat. Birthday parties, holiday gatherings, vacation memories accumulated over 29 years of love, investment, and hope for a future. I opened my laptop and began calculating with the methodical precision that engineering had taught me to apply to complex problems. University tuition over 4 years, $68,000. Car down payment and co-signed loan, $12,000. Security deposits for various apartments for $1,500. Emergency loans that were never repaid, $9,800. Graduation gifts, travel expenses, professional wardrobe contributions, countless restaurant meals and entertainment costs that I had gladly absorbed because her happiness mattered more than my comfort. Total investment in Rebecca's future, $94,300. Return on investment, systematic destruction of my property, and demands for insurance proceeds. Sarah's reading chair sat empty in the corner, still positioned exactly where she had spent countless evenings before her illness, often discussing Rebecca's spending habits and occasional requests for financial assistance. I could almost hear my wife's gentle voice during one of our late-night conversations about enabling versus empowerment. Love sometimes means allowing people to face consequences. Frank, we're not helping her develop strength by making everything easy. I had disagreed then, believing parental love meant protection from hardship. Now, staring at financial documents that chronicled years of unconditional support, I finally understood Sarah's wisdom hadn't been criticism of Rebecca, but protection of her character development. My computer screen glowed as I researched Illinois vandalism laws, property damage statutes, and insurance fraud regulations. Destruction exceeding $500 constituted a Class A misdemeanor, potentially punishable by fines up to $2,500 and jail time up to 1 year. Insurance fraud carried federal implications if certain thresholds were exceeded, complications that could affect Rebecca's career prospects and professional reputation for decades. This wasn't just about recovering money or punishing Rebecca for criminal behavior. This was about teaching consequences that I had failed to implement consistently throughout her development. Lessons about responsibility and respect that might still salvage whatever remained of her moral foundation. I picked up my phone and scrolled to my colleague David Kim's contact information. David had mentioned his family law attorney during a lunch conversation last month, not for divorce proceedings, but for estate planning and civil matters that required specialized expertise. David, sorry to call so late. Do you have contact information for that attorney you mentioned? I need someone who handles civil litigation. Frank, is everything all right? You sound stressed. Family matter that requires legal guidance. Someone who understands property damage and civil remedies. 20 minutes later, I had an appointment scheduled with Michael Sterling for Thursday afternoon. Michael Sterling, civil litigation specialist, came recommended with professional credentials and reasonable rates that would allow me to pursue justice without creating additional financial hardship. Sitting in Sarah's chair where she used to read before bed, surrounded by evidence of our daughter's financial dependence and emotional manipulation, I finally understood that my wife's concerns about enabling Rebecca hadn't been criticism of our daughter's character, but protection of it. The family albums closed with soft finality, and I saved my legal research in organized folders that would help me prepare for Thursday's consultation. Michael Sterling would help me teach Rebecca lessons about consequences that I should have implemented years ago, education about responsibility and respect that might still redirect her path toward authentic adulthood and moral accountability. Wednesday morning's mail delivery brought the envelope I had been anticipating with mixed emotions, thick and official, bearing the All-State logo that had become familiar during recent weeks. I sorted through bills and advertisements at my kitchen table, saving the insurance correspondence for last like a reward delayed to increase its significance. The check inside exceeded my conservative estimates by several $100s, $8,200 exactly, with claim number 2024 $156,789 printed in neat corporate typography. The memo line read, "Vehicle total loss settlement." Each word a reminder of Rebecca's calculated betrayal and the deeper lessons about trust that this experience was teaching me. Rather than driving to the bank, since my transportation remained in destroyed condition in the driveway, I decided to use public transportation, giving myself time to think during the 40-minute bus ride downtown. The CTA route provided an opportunity to observe my city from a different perspective, watching neighborhoods pass while reviewing strategies for the conversation that would determine how Rebecca's education and consequences would proceed. Chase Bank's downtown branch processed my deposit with efficient professionalism, the middle-aged teller commenting on the substantial amount with polite interest. Insurance settlement, I explained briefly, receiving the kind of sympathetic response that people offer when they recognize life's unexpected complications. The transaction completed smoothly, my account balance increasing by exactly $8,200, documentation that might prove valuable if this situation required legal resolution. The walk home took nearly an hour, a deliberate route through neighborhoods where other residents maintained their properties with obvious pride and respect. Well-kept lawns, freshly painted fences, vehicles parked in driveways without broken glass or vandalized panels. The contrast with my own situation felt increasingly intentional, a visible reminder of what happened when family relationships were corrupted by entitlement and disrespect. My destroyed Honda remained exactly where I had left it, spider-webbed windshield catching afternoon sunlight, like a broken mirror reflecting fractured trust. Neighbors still slowed when passing, their expressions mixing sympathy with curiosity about why repairs hadn't begun. I had no intention of repairing anything yet. The damaged vehicle represented more than transportation. Now, every dent and scratch told the story of betrayal, visible evidence of what happened when love was repaid with calculated destruction. Standing in my driveway with the insurance settlement deposited and legal consultation scheduled for tomorrow, I pulled out my phone to review Michael Sterling's contact information. Thursday at 2 p.m., appointment confirmed for legal strategy development, evidence presentation, and planning for consequences that might finally teach Rebecca about responsibility and respect. Michael Sterling's law office occupied the third floor of a restored brick building downtown, the kind of professional space that suggested competence without ostentation. I sat in the waiting room with my manila folder containing printed transcripts, photographs, and insurance documentation, preparation that reflected the systematic approach I had learned to apply to complex engineering challenges. Mr. Henderson, I'm Michael Sterling. The handshake was firm and professional, his appearance suggesting someone in his early 50s with the analytical demeanor of a person accustomed to solving complicated problems. His office mixed family photographs with legal references, creating an atmosphere that balanced expertise with accessibility. I understand you need assistance with a family legal matter involving property damage. I opened my folder methodically, organizing evidence like technical drawings for a construction project. My daughter vandalized my car while I was traveling on business, then confessed and demanded the insurance proceeds. I have her admission recorded with her knowledge and consent. Michael's eyebrows rose slightly as I played Rebecca's casual confession through my phone speaker. Her voice filled his office with the same entitled confidence that had shocked me days earlier, each word building stronger legal foundation for whatever action we decided to pursue. This is solid evidence, he said, reviewing photographs while making notes on a legal pad. The recording is definitely admissible in Illinois as a single-party consent state. What outcome are you hoping to achieve? Accountability, I replied without hesitation. She's 29 years old and has never faced meaningful consequences for choices that harm other people. I want her to understand that actions have results, that family relationships require mutual respect, not just unconditional support. Michael's fingers tapped thoughtfully against his desk as he considered options. We could pursue civil lawsuit for property damage, emotional distress, and potential fraud attempt. Damages might reach $12,000 to $15,000 plus court costs, depending on how we structure the claim. The legal strategy developed over the next hour, documentation prepared for immediate serving, settlement alternatives that included behavioral requirements and restitution schedules, timeline for filing that would maximize educational impact while providing opportunities for Rebecca to demonstrate genuine change in attitude and behavior. Papers can be ready for serving within 48 hours, Michael explained. Sheriff's Department handles official delivery, ensures proper legal notification according to state requirements. This gives her opportunity to respond appropriately, either through legal representation or direct negotiation for settlement. Back home by 4:30, I reviewed the civil complaint forms Michael had prepared with meticulous attention to legal detail. Frank Henderson, plaintiff. Rebecca Henderson, defendant. $15,000 in damages claimed with evidence attachments including audio transcript, insurance documentation, and photographs of systematic destruction. Time for the most delicate part of my plan, the conversation that would determine whether education could occur through cooperation or required enforcement through legal consequences. Rebecca answered on the second ring, her voice carrying expectant enthusiasm that reminded me of childhood Christmas mornings when anticipation made everything seem possible. Dad, please tell me you have good news about the insurance settlement. Rebecca, the check arrived today. We should discuss this properly, face to face. Finally, how much did they give you? I've been researching apartments closer to downtown, places that would be more convenient for my work schedule. The casual assumption that insurance proceeds belonged to her struck me like a revelation about entitlement, so complete that it had become invisible to her own awareness. She truly believed that destroying my property created legitimate claim to financial compensation, that criminal behavior was simply alternative problem solving that justified reward rather than consequence. Why don't you come by Thursday evening? I suggested carefully. We'll have dinner and discuss everything properly. Thursday works perfectly. What time should I arrive? 6 o'clock. Come hungry. I'll prepare your favorite meal. Her enthusiasm practically bubbled through the phone connection. Joy and satisfaction that felt tragically misplaced given what actually awaited her Thursday evening. This is going to solve everything, Dad. You'll see how much this helps me get back on track, financially and professionally. I'm certain this will teach you exactly what you need to learn. I replied truthfully, though she couldn't possibly understand the deeper meaning behind my words. After hanging up, I sat at my desk with completed lawsuit paperwork spread before me like battle plans for a war I had never wanted to fight. Rebecca had no comprehension of what awaited her Thursday evening. No concept that actions carried consequences beyond her immediate wants and financial convenience. Thursday's calendar date was circled in red ink on my desk calendar, marking the appointment where my daughter would finally receive education and responsibility and accountability that I should have provided consistently throughout her development. The damaged Honda was visible through my window, broken windshield catching late afternoon light like a reminder of why this difficult lesson had become necessary. Soon, very soon, Rebecca would understand exactly what happened when someone chose to destroy trust and property belonging to people who love them. The education would be painful but essential, consequences that might still redirect her toward authentic character development and moral maturity. Thursday evening at 6:15 found me positioned at my living room window, watching Rebecca's car pull into the driveway with confident speed that reflected someone expecting celebration rather than consequence. 4 days had passed since our phone conversation. 4 days I had spent checking and rechecking legal documents that Michael Sterling had prepared with professional precision and attention to procedural detail. The manila envelope sat on my side table, sealed and waiting like carefully planned intervention for behavior that had gone uncorrected far too long. Rebecca's knock carried familiar rhythm, quick and impatient, expecting immediate attention and positive response to demands that had become automatic assumptions about family obligation. I opened the door to find her practically glowing with anticipation. Designer purse clutched against her side like protective armor against financial realities that she expected me to solve through insurance proceeds that she considered rightfully hers. Dad, I hope you're ready to make this right, she said, following me into the living room with barely contained excitement. She settled onto the familiar sofa where family photos watched from the mantel like silent witnesses to decades of love, investment, and hope that had apparently failed to develop the character qualities that Sarah and I had tried so carefully to instill. Through the window behind her, my destroyed Honda sat in the driveway, broken windshield catching evening light as permanent reminder of why this conversation had become necessary. I've been thinking about this all week, she continued, purse positioned expectantly on her lap like collection receptacle for money she considered already earned through destruction of my property. This will solve my rent problems, my credit card debt, everything that's been causing stress lately. I reached for the envelope with deliberate calm, engineering mind, savoring the precision of timing and preparation that had brought us to this moment of education and consequence. Months of enabling, years of unconditional support, decades of protection from natural results of choices had led to this single exchange of documents that would either teach responsibility or force legal enforcement of accountability. Here, I said gently, extending the sealed envelope toward her eager hands. This is for you. Read everything carefully. Rebecca's manicured fingers tore open the seal with efficient anticipation, her smile broad and confident as she extracted papers inside, expecting bank check or money transfer authorization that would solve her financial problems without requiring any acknowledgement of criminal behavior or moral responsibility for consequences. The letterhead caught her attention first. Michael Sterling, attorney at law, civil litigation specialist. Confusion flickered across her features as she processed official legal formatting that didn't match her expectations of simple financial transaction between family members who shared unconditional love and mutual support. "What is this?" she asked, voice beginning to carry uncertainty rather than excitement. "I thought you were bringing me the insurance check." "Read it," I replied calmly. Every word, every clause, every specification of legal remedy and financial consequence. Color began draining from her face as she progressed through formal legal language describing civil lawsuit, property damage claims, and potential criminal referral for vandalism and insurance fraud. Her eyes moved across pages with growing bewilderment and horror as she processed implications that she had never considered possible. Civil lawsuit? The words emerged as barely more than whisper. Frank Henderson versus Rebecca Henderson. $15,000 in damages. She looked up sharply, papers trembling in hands that had moments before been steady with confident anticipation. "Dad, what does this mean?" "Keep reading," I instructed gently but firmly. "Property destruction, emotional distress, legal costs, potential criminal charges depending on your response to civil remedy." The complete transformation of her expression from greedy anticipation to genuine panic was both satisfying and heartbreaking. My daughter stared at legal documents as if they might transform into something else through sheer force of will. Her expensive purse sliding forgotten to the floor as designer confidence crumbled into authentic fear about consequences she had never imagined facing. "You're suing me?" Her voice cracked with disbelief. "Your own daughter? Family doesn't do this to each other. This isn't real. This can't be happening." "It's absolutely real, Rebecca. You destroyed my property through calculated criminal behavior, then demanded payment for your crime as if vandalism was a legitimate problem, solving rather than violation of law and trust." Watching my daughter's face transform from entitled expectation to horrified understanding, I felt cold satisfaction of parent who had finally found perfect consequence for child who believed family meant unlimited financial support without corresponding responsibility or respect for boundaries and basic human decency. "This could ruin everything," she continued desperately, clutching legal papers like evidence of her own destruction. "My credit rating, my job applications, background checks will show lawsuit and potential criminal charges. This affects my entire future." "Yes," I confirmed simply. "Actions have consequences. Criminal behavior produces legal results. Destroying other people's property creates financial liability and potential criminal prosecution." Rebecca slid from the sofa to her knees on hardwood floor, legal papers scattering around her like fallen leaves from tree of consequences that she had somehow believed would never reach maturity. The transformation was complete, from confident manipulator to broken child facing accountability for first time in 29 years of life protected from natural results of choices. "Please don't do this, Dad," she begged, voice rising toward hysteria as reality crushed worldview built on assumption that love meant protection from consequences rather than guidance toward responsibility. "This will destroy my career prospects, my financial future, everything I've worked to build." For the first time since this confrontation began, I saw something I had been hoping to witness. Genuine remorse replacing self-preservation, authentic understanding rather than manipulative pleading, recognition of harm caused rather than focus on personal inconvenience of facing accountability. "I was desperate," she said through tears that seemed authentic rather than calculated. "I wasn't thinking clearly about consequences for anyone except myself. I saw opportunity to solve my problems and took it without considering how much this would hurt you, how wrong it was to destroy your property and demand payment for criminal behavior." She looked up at me from the floor, mascara streaked, and completely vulnerable for perhaps the first time since early childhood. "I'll do anything to make this right. Pay full restitution, accept counseling, change my lifestyle completely. I know I destroyed your trust. I know what I did was criminal and wrong." Family photos on the mantle observe this scene with painted smiles from happier times when trust existed and love felt unconditional. Through the window, the destroyed Honda served as constant reminder of why we had reached this crossroads between enabling and accountability, between unconditional support and earned respect. "I'm sorry for what I did to your car, to our relationship, to your sense of safety in your own home," Rebecca continued, voice breaking completely. "I became someone Mom would be ashamed of, didn't I? Someone who repays love with betrayal and kindness with destruction." Watching my daughter's complete emotional breakdown, seeing her finally understand that actions produce consequences beyond comfortable bubble of entitlement and assumed forgiveness, I felt terrible satisfaction of parent who had chosen justice over comfort for sake of child's character development and moral education. But beneath satisfaction, something else stirred. Possibility that this lesson might actually work, that pain might produce growth, that consequences might still salvage whatever remained of the person Sarah and I had tried so carefully to raise. "I'll find therapist immediately," she continued desperately. "Get stable, full-time employment, pay back every penny of damages, sign any agreement you want, follow any conditions you establish. I'll prove that I can change, that I can become person worthy of your love and trust again." I leaned forward slightly, speaking my first words of potential reconciliation in several minutes. "Perhaps we can discuss terms." 3 hours later, we sat at the kitchen table where this crisis had begun months earlier, coffee cups between us and handwritten agreement, taking shape on legal pad paper that outlined path toward redemption and restoration of family relationship based on mutual respect rather than one-sided financial support. Rebecca's emotional breakdown had given way to exhausted determination, her usual manipulative energy replaced by genuine humility and apparent commitment to fundamental change in behavior and attitude. The destroyed Honda remained visible through kitchen window, broken windshield catching evening light like memorial to shattered trust that might still be rebuilt through consistent demonstration of responsibility and respect. Weekly counseling sessions for minimum of 6 months. I wrote in neat engineering script that reflected systematic approach to character reconstruction. Focus on financial responsibility, family relationships, and understanding consequences of choices that affect other people. "I agree completely," Rebecca replied, her voice carrying none of her usual argumentative tone or defensive justification. "I know I need professional help understanding why I make destructive choices and learning healthier ways to handle problems and stress. Full-time employment within 30 days, proof of steady income sufficient for gradual restitution and independent living without family financial support." I continued, creating framework for accountability that should have been established years earlier. She nodded seriously, no longer the entitled daughter who had demanded money just months ago without considering source or sacrifice required. I'll take whatever job I can find immediately. No more excuses about finding perfect opportunity or position that matches my preferences exactly. Gradual repayment of insurance, deductible, and legal costs, $75 monthly until satisfied, demonstrating commitment to making financial amends for damage caused. That's more than fair. Rebecca studied the growing list of conditions with apparent respect for structure and expectations that she had previously resisted. Much more than fair, considering pain and violation I put you through with my criminal behavior. I set down my pen and looked at my daughter carefully, really studying her for first time since her confession weeks earlier. The arrogant confidence had vanished completely, replaced by someone who understood consequences and seemed genuinely committed to change that went beyond temporary convenience or immediate problem solving. This was lesson, Rebecca, about responsibility and accountability, about respect for other people's property and feelings, about understanding that family love includes boundaries and expectations rather than unconditional financial support regardless of behavior. I understand that now, Dad, she replied, reaching across table to cover my hand with hers in gesture I hadn't felt from her in years. Thank you for caring enough to teach me this lesson instead of enabling my destructive behavior forever, for loving me enough to risk our relationship in order to help me develop authentic character. The irony wasn't lost on me that Sarah had tried repeatedly to warn me about enabling Rebecca's financial dependence. But I had chosen protection over accountability until daughter's betrayal forced recognition that love sometimes requires allowing people to face natural consequences of choices that harm others. I want to become the daughter you and Mom raised me to be, she continued, tears starting again, but different ones now. Grateful rather than desperate, hopeful rather than manipulative. I know I haven't been that person for far too long, and I know rebuilding your trust will require consistent demonstration rather than promises or explanations. We spent the next hour finalizing details, counseling appointment scheduling, job search timeline, monthly check-ins to review progress and address problems before they became crises, written agreement that both of us signed as solemn contract representing new foundation for family relationship based on mutual respect and accountability. As evening approached, we stood together in driveway beside my destroyed vehicle, examining damage that had transformed from betrayal into education, from violation into opportunity for growth and character development that might still salvage family relationship worth preserving. Rebecca touched broken windshield gently, fingers tracing spider web cracks she had created in moment of calculated destruction and entitled anger. I'll never forget what I did here, she said quietly, voice carrying weight of genuine understanding rather than surface apology. Or how much you had to suffer to teach me lesson I should have learned years ago through smaller consequences and better choices. Standing in evening light beside evidence of both destruction and potential redemption, I realized that sometimes the most difficult lesson parent can teach is that authentic love includes accountability, that genuine care requires allowing people to face consequences of choices, and that greatest gift we can give our children is opportunity to develop character through natural results of behavior rather than protection from reality. Rebecca gathered her purse and signed agreement, moving toward her car with renewed sense of purpose rather than entitled expectation or desperate manipulation. At threshold of driveway, she turned back with expression that mixed gratitude, determination, and respect that I hadn't seen from her since childhood. I love you, Dad. Thank you for saving me from myself, for refusing to enable behavior that was destroying my character and our relationship. Thank you for caring enough to teach me hard lessons that I needed to learn. The destroyed Honda would remain in my driveway for several more weeks, not as evidence of betrayal, but as proof that even most painful lessons can lead to genuine transformation when consequences are allowed to teach what enablement and protection never could accomplish. Thank you for joining me in this story of courage, dignity, and the profound importance of self-respect within family relationships. If this resonated with your own life experiences, I invite you to subscribe for more thoughtful narratives that explore the complexity of family dynamics, personal boundaries, and the courage required to stand up for what's right even when it's difficult. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every response and truly value the wisdom our community brings to these conversations. Your stories and insights help others who may be facing similar challenges in their own family relationships.